Okay, to summarize what we just looked at in the first video here, okay, these are all my calculations, and you could see in the first instance we had two real and distinct roots. Distinct, remember, just means different, and you can see that there, that the curve crosses the x-axis at two different points. Okay, now there's a reason why we had two different roots. Okay, when you look at how the quadratic formula is constructed, you've got this plus or minus here. Yeah, so there's a plus option of the square root here, and then there's the minus option of the square root here. But in order for us, and this is really important for you to recognize, in order for us to have had two solutions out there, we needed this value inside the root to be positive. Okay, because if it was positive, we were able to square root it, and we got 2 in this case, and then you're either adding 2 or you're taking away 2. So that's so important. The value inside that root has to be positive. Now if you go back up here, okay, to look at the value here, it's essentially this value here, yeah, whatever b squared minus 4ac is. So in this case, we needed b squared minus 4ac, that value inside that root, to be positive. And it was. And if it's positive, then we've got this situation, two real and distinct roots. Okay. When we look at the second one, notice we had equal or repeated roots. Okay, it's real, it's a real root, but it's an equal root. Okay, we've only got one answer essentially. Now look here at the reason why we only had one answer. Of course, we've got the plus or minus option still in our quadratic formula. The issue was though that this was equal to 0. Yeah, the value inside of that square root was equal to 0. And of course then that affected the outcome because the plus or minus made no difference. Okay, you're adding, taking away nothing, it makes no difference. You end up just with one or a repeated solution. Okay, so in this case we have b squared minus 4ac. That value inside that root is equal to 0. Okay, finally then we had the situation here where we had minus 64 in the root, and it was an error, okay, because you can't square root a negative. So in this case the whole thing crashed. You had no real roots, and it was all to do with this value in here because this was negative. So in this case, b squared minus 4ac, the value inside that root is negative. So to summarize, okay, this value b squared minus 4ac is super important. Okay, so important it's given a name. It's called the discriminant, right? Because it's like the decider. It decides how many roots a quadratic, or how many real roots a quadratic equation has got. Okay, so we give it this name, the discriminant. So we've seen if b squared minus 4ac is positive, then we have two real and distinct roots. Okay, so it crosses the x-axis in two locations. But if b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, then we have equal roots or repeated root, and it just intersects at one point there. Okay, so it touches the x-axis here. And then you get the situation where the discriminant value is negative. Okay, so in this case, remember then you're trying to square root a negative, and it's impossible. So you have no answers out. So we literally say then there's no real roots. And you get a situation like that then where it does not cross the x-axis.